All right, guys, it's another episode of the Rest Round with Butch Hiles, Gary Hashman. Today we've got Michael and Michelle Argyropoulos. We cleared that up beforehand. They are the owners operators of Digg City Jiu Jitsu in Athens, Ohio. I've had the chance to roll with you guys, hang out with you guys a little bit. Super good people, super good jiu-jitsu, and what you're looking for in the people that you train with. Like, I feel like they've got it. Super welcoming. Every time I've gone there, every time I've got to experience any time with you guys, you've been nothing but warm and inviting. And those are the people that we love to hang out with. A lot of jiu-jitsu kind of will nurture that, and it's hard to find people in jiu-jitsu that are kind of leave a bad taste in your mouth. But you guys are the salt of the earth, and I appreciate you. And a lot of my guys that were training with me at Bobcat are now training with you, and they've got nothing but good things to say. So I'm glad to have you on the podcast, and we just want to share a little bit of time with you and kind of get into where you guys are from, what you guys are doing in Athens, Ohio, and the kind of the whole story. So I guess we'll kind of start with Michael, if that's all right. Michael, you want to kind of give us your story and where you're from?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Dayton, Ohio. Her and I both graduated from Centerville. So we met back in actually kindergarten, but we started dating in high school. But I moved out west just randomly and started jiu-jitsu at Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and Steamboat Springs Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and just kind of fell in love with it. And she just started training pretty much when I started training. And man, that's all we did. I was a carpenter, worked. We had kids, and she ran a daycare out of our house, and we just worked and trained every day damn near. And grateful for that small training room of individuals that I had and came up under, and great people. They made me the man I am today. But yeah, COVID happened. We're out in Colorado, and everyone wanted to move to the mountains, and we just kind of took a chance and put our house on the market, and it sold and pretty quickly, and we just decided to just change it up, honestly, entirely. We wanted to be a little closer to family too. So they're like 2.5 hours away from Athens. But yeah, we just moved back to Ohio, and here we are, really. And I mean, there's a lot I could go into. I'm sure questions will arise, but ultimately, my brother passed away. He took his life, and I realized, you gotta do what you love in life, and that kind of was like the last push that we needed to like kind of make the commitment to start a gym. And yeah, and here we are, and it's great. Honestly, it's been with your support and just honestly some stuff coming out of the woodwork. It's been great. Even your introduction got me a little teary-eyed, so I gotta chill. But I'm rocking some Bobcat MMA shorts on my fight next weekend. I'm pretty stoked, dude. Paying homage.
I appreciate it. I love that, man.
Josh gave me an old pair, so I'm stoked.
Sweet. So now I know you had here recently, I think you had a fight to win match. Is that correct?
Yeah, I lost pretty quickly to a great guy. He's good. I made some great relationships doing that, but yeah, it was up in Cleveland, super last minute. Just went up there solo, and got after it. I had a fun time. It was worth it. No regrets. Learned on my mistakes and worked on them instantly. So I'm excited to get back after it.
And the match that you have coming up, where is that? Who's it with? Like, what promotion?
It's BCM Promotions. It's the Cage Grappling Series 2, but it's in Mansfield, Ohio, and it's going to be in a cage, but it's just submission grappling jiu-jitsu. So it's with a guy named Caleb. I don't know how to say his last name, so I don't want to torture it. But later,
I don't know.
Yeah, but it's next weekend. I got Trace a match too.
Nice.
Yeah. He just got it super last minute too. They were looking for a younger kid, so I'm excited. I'm just gonna go there and show out, and I got a lot of the team coming to this one, so it'll be fun. I'm not going solo again.
Yeah, it always feels better when you got somebody there with you. So that's awesome, man. Yeah. So we kind of talked about. So you opened up last year, right?
Yes, last year, August 20th
Yeah.
was.
August 20th. So you
Yeah.
guys have been open for about 6 months now, 6 months now.
5 months on the 20th of this
Yeah.
month. Yeah.
We're fresh.
Yeah. So still
Okay.
super fresh.
Yeah. And as far as what is it like trying to get guys in? Because this is the big thing for all gyms is getting people in the door, right? We got to get people in there, get them to fall in love with the sport that we love, and trying to keep them. And that's probably the hardest thing. You know, I've talked to Butch about this a lot, and I've talked to a lot of people, but like I would say 90% of the people that you meet in jiu-jitsu are gone after about 2 or 3 years. And that's how it is. Like you don't see them stick around too long. It's hard to get a blue belt. And then after you get your blue belt, you really have to take inventory of how important jujitsu is. Because if you're belt hunting and it takes you 2.5 years, 3 years to get a blue belt, and you're thinking, man, I got 9 years to get my black belt. Like, what am I doing this for now? So you have to fall in love with it, stick with it. What successes, what struggles are you having as far as like getting people in the door and kind of having them there as your students?
At first we did a lot of advertising and just to show, like, let the world know that we were going to exist. But I think at this point it's kind of just being who we are and cultivating a good community in the students that we do have, and then they start to tell their friends and they bring their friends in, and that seems to be kind of what is going to be sustaining of us slowly growing, just building a good community and a good foundation of people and a good team. And then that if the trend continues, should just slowly grow. And it's a small town where we're at, so a lot of it is going to be word of mouth and people telling their friends and stuff like that. So
I'm horrible at advertising. I'm not a salesman, and I don't have a bone in my body that does that. That's a weakness in the whole owning the business thing, but I'm just kind of just being a good member in the community. And you sending the people our way,
we did get lucky. We did get a bunch of Bobcat people that are already have a good foundation and
some of those attitude. The OU MMA crew guys come in there, and so the college kids have been rolling through. That's the sad thing, some of them are going to come and they're really good training partners, and after a couple years they're going to go, but they'll go off into the world with jiu-jitsu knowledge and I think that'll be important. Good knowledge of what a good gym should be like, So when they do go find a new gym, or they're in search of a new gym in their new town, they'll know, what a healthy gym culture place is to look for, and they don't get stuck in a space that might not have as healthy of a culture or whatever.
Yeah, and I'll interject on that too. And I think it's funny. Like I'm not near a college. I mean, I kind of technically am. I'm in Charleston, West Virginia, and there's University of Charleston where I went to school, and West Virginia State. There's colleges nearby, but they're not. It's a little different dynamic, I guess. But for example, in West Virginia, there's Morgantown, West Virginia, and Huntington, who do get a lot of college students, especially Morgantown. You can watch their numbers, for me, just as an observer on Instagram or Facebook, where when college is in, like it's jam-packed, right? And then you have the summer session where everybody's gone. But like you said, I think it's kind of a cool thing. You have a bunch of people to train with, right, at the time. And the next thing is like really, like you said, doing a good service and letting those people know how it is to train and introducing them something. It kind of, going back to what you're saying earlier, kind of when you just kind of offhandedly mentioned sales, that's one of my jobs too, is some medical device sales. But I have a friend in that field that does the same thing. It's like he works a lot with fellows in Cincinnati and some other places, which fellows are going to soon to be doctors, but they're usually just there for training for a year or two, and then they go off to open their own practice or join somebody else's practice. So during that point, or during that part, it's just like you said, it's like a learning process, and they're learning from, that's kind of their black belt, is that doctor, and he's trying to teach them what he knows and trying to bring them up right, and then off they go. And again, they can either start their own thing or they can go somewhere else, but hopefully they kind of know what a good environment's like. And so the guys in sales that do the best for everybody else are the ones that really do a good job there. For example, we had this doctor, and again, this is my real job. We had this doctor move to West Virginia from New York, but at my job, I was able to reach out to that guy. I knew he was moving here, but I was able to reach out to that guy in New York and say, hey, like, tell me about this guy. I'm going to meet him. What's it like? And blah, blah, blah. And I knew the background of his training and, before he got here. And again, this is not jujitsu, just real life. But when he got here, we had, everything was set up perfectly and that guy did a good job. And then it was like a seamless transition into the same kind of atmosphere. So what you're saying kind of hits home because those are the things that I deal with. And it is an important thing. Like it kind of like you could be depressed because you're like, we're just always losing these people. And there's this period, like while they're gone that I don't have them. Or, I think the thing in jiu-jitsu that's always kind of weird is that and you guys have probably had it before, but you have these guys that or girls that you see and that you're like, they see a lot of potential in them and you give them a lot of attention and a lot of time and all this stuff. And then maybe they quit or they, move. And it's a bummer, right? Because you're like, man, I really saw potential. This was going to be amazing. And you already had their like quote unquote jujitsu life mapped out for them, right? Like you're like, this person's going to crush it. And then off they go. And it's sad, which you're going to have to do that every year or so at your gym. So it's an interesting dynamic, right? Like as a person that doesn't have that, sometimes I wish I had that because I'm wishing that I had all these people at this particular time, right? But then on the flip side, I am awfully glad in a weird way that I don't have to like restart all the time. That's, it's funny because everybody loves college sports, for example, talk about that. I hate college sports because I'm like, why do I want to see everybody rebuild every couple of years? Like it's annoying to me. Like I find no enjoyment in watching that. I'd rather see this team that's like a professional team build up, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, you really have to love that game, right? And you guys have an opportunity and you've already recognized what that game is and, what your outline is and what you can do. And I think if you've already recognized that and identified that from the get-go, you got this amazing opportunity to do things that the rest of us can't do or, are not going to be able to do. And I think that's probably a cool adventure in itself, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll find out after 6 months, right? Like we'll see what happens, supposedly,
Yeah.
But at least Now,
Yeah.
Michelle, I would kind of like to get you like your background as far as like I'm assuming, I could be wrong, Michael started the jiu-jitsu journey and then you were like, well, maybe I'll try this out, because that's usually how most women get involved is as a they come to check it out after the boyfriend, they watch the boyfriend or husband do it. So what was your experience and how did you get involved in jiu-jitsu?
So pretty much, yeah, what you said. So we dabbled in a little Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu before we moved out west. And then when we moved out west, before we had found Steamboat Swing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I became a yoga teacher. So I was really immersed in my yoga practice at one point. So he had started back at Jiu-Jitsu for a little while after that. And then for him to train for free, I taught yoga at the Steamboat Springs Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And once I started teaching there, I felt like to get better street cred, if you will, I needed to practice with the dudes because they're like, who is this person teaching us this thing? And I was still trying to convince them that yoga was real. So I started training and I kind of never stopped from there, and then convinced all the dudes there that yoga is real and train jiu-jitsu with them. So so that's kind of how I started. So pretty much, he went in and I followed.
Yeah. So the last time I was up, Butch, she put on a little yoga thing. Like, what was it? Like 25, 30 minutes of yoga before we all rolled. And I'm telling you, I think I may have rolled some of the best rounds I'd ever rolled before. And I was like, I need to incorporate this into my everyday jiu-jitsu. And then I didn't.
Well, I mean, if you don't have the opportunity to train with somebody like her, right? That's what's going to happen. I mean, if anybody's wondering, I'm a fairly flexible guy. I do a lot of stretching at home. It's not yoga, but there's a lot of stuff that I do, like hurdler stretches, or
I've always talked about this. Growing up, I never sat on the couch. I always sat on the floor. So if I was watching cartoons, I would sit on the floor and stretch. And that's just kind of what I did. I would always like bend down, touch my toes, or like bring my knees to my chest and like stretch my back out. It just felt good. And so I would always do that. And because of that, I'm pretty flexible. But then like after doing the yoga with you, and I've done yoga a couple other times, but specifically doing the yoga that we did before the open mat that I was at, like I just felt like a lot more loose and relaxed. And so I was like, man, I need to write all this stuff down, and I didn't.
Well, that's really cool to hear. It's kind of weird, the yoga thing. It's something that kind of, the yoga for jujitsu that I teach is something that I developed without really even knowing it. I guess I was teaching just normal hatha yoga at gyms and yoga studios. And then once I started teaching the jujitsu guys, having to adjust the way I teach and speak and describe things. And it kind of just grew into its own type of yoga for jiu-jitsu people. And I know there are lots of really awesome yoga for jiu-jitsu folks out there. And so it's like, it very beneficial. In jiu-jitsu in a way is, we call it involuntary yoga. You just get put into these positions without, your choice sometimes.
That's why it's good, because jiu-jitsu, you're always like in some weird position. So then you try to be symmetrical with yoga. And it's hard, it's hard to sit up straight, harder than you think, just to sit there crisscross applesauce, if you will, and just have your back straight, that in itself can be a struggle.
Well, I'll tell you the thing that I took from yoga, as far as like for jiu-jitsu, the thing that I took from yoga the most was breathing through the uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of times where you just have to like, okay, I have to settle into this position. And sometimes we get caught in positions that we're not supposed to be in. Obviously, we don't want to be in bottom side control or whatever, big guy and top side on you. But just breathing and like realizing like this kind of sucks right now, but I can make it through this. And I'm waiting for my opportunity. And when he moves his knee, that's when I'm going to get back to my guard, or I'm going to get back to my full guard or half guard or whatever it is. And so like yoga, the thing that I've taken from yoga when I've done yoga is like, oh, this kind of sucks right now, but this isn't forever. This is going to last for another 30 seconds, and I can make it this 30 seconds of suck to get to like the relaxed afterwards.
Yeah, finding the connection with your breath can help you survive in a lot of very uncomfortable positions. Like sometimes, like if you're in bottom side and you find yourself maybe freaking out or you're breathing super hard, like I will just be like, okay, I just need to connect with my breath and like calm down, because me freaking out and like losing my connection with my breath makes it suck even more. So finding the connection with your breath and like listening to your body is very important, I think, or it can be very beneficial for person.
It's helped me. I weigh 153 pounds, and the big ranchers out in Colorado that I got smashed on, and I came out here to the big Ohio corn-fed wrestlers, I'm on the bottom a lot, so it keeps me calm.
Can you explain to me, as like somebody that doesn't do yoga, like when somebody says like, like center yourself or find a connection in your breath, what that means? Because I think people say that nonchalantly, and then like we're all supposed to know what that means. And I'm like, I breathe, so I'm connected to it. Like if I'm not, I'll die. Right.
Yeah.
So but that's not what you mean, right? We need to know.
Well, I mean, we do a lot of, it's easy to go through everyday life without, finding like that connection. Like you just kind of move through, you use your body and your breath, but you don't really realize that it's there and that it is like a vital part of you being alive. So something that I teach in pretty much every time I lead a yoga thing at the beginning is like find your breath. So just let your breath flow as it's flowing, but shutting your mind off to everything else that's happening and connecting with the flow of your breath. So following the breath as you breathe in, breathing out, following your breath as you breathe out, and just connect with the flow, the inhale and the exhale of your breath flowing in and out. And that in itself, because your breath is, other than your heartbeat, your breath is like the metronome of your body. So being connected with that and just flowing and knowing when it's flowing in and out, it can make that's the part that kind of helps you be grounded and connected with the breath, if that makes sense.
No, at all, but because it sounds like it's still, to me, like that's the thing. Like if I was just going to go off your words, I'm like, okay, it's the same thing. I don't know what that means, but
Yeah.
I don't know if you could say it any other way.
I was gonna say, here's my experience with it. As far as like, it's, and we talk about this, like, I've had people say that they're in really good shape and they think they're ready to do jujitsu, and then they come into jujitsu and they're exhausted after a 5-minute round, right?
Mhm.
And a big part of that is because they don't know when to breathe. And then when they are breathing, they're breathing sporadically, a lot of
Yeah.
a lot of force and a lot of untimed muscle fire, right? It's the wrong time to do. So like I've had D1 athletes that I've trained with, and I've had marathon runners, and they're like, man, you don't seem like you should be in that good of shape. And I shouldn't. I'm not that in that good of shape. I'm in okay shape for jujitsu, but the whole thing is I know when to breathe. I know when to relax. I know when to fire my muscles. And that's something that I can see as far as yoga for jujitsu is like, okay, this is time to calm down. This is where you need to breathe, find your timing, right? Center yourself mentally, not only physically, but mentally, and settle yourself and get ready for the proper time to move. And I think that is the whole breathing for like the yoga for jujitsu is kind of like know where your body is in relationship to this round, in relationship to your opponent, in relationship to jujitsu, right? What is a good jujitsu technique versus a muscled or strengthened jujitsu technique, just kind of muscling through stuff, and like use proper application. And that's kind of like what I take from yoga is like, I need to use my body smart.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever done a sauna, Butch?
Yes.
Like when you're in there and it sucks, you're at that point where it absolutely sucks, and you're like, you have to control your breath, right? Because you're gonna pass out. Like that's kind of like that feeling your breath. At least my take on it and my experience with it is because you really got to control your breath, or you're gonna kind of panic and be like, I gotta get the fuck out of here, But if you want to stay in there, you got to really find your breath, if you will.
Or like in a cold plunge or something like that, where you're using your breath to calm
This
down.
might be a concept that I'll never understand. Yeah, maybe it's for me, for my brain, it's just a terminology because it just doesn't make any sense. Like for example, just also not sorry to cut you, but like even when Gary just said center yourself, I have no idea what that means.
But I also feel like maybe you are also so centered that you are, because you have been practicing martial arts for such a long time, that you are centered and you are connected to your breath, but you just don't realize it. Like it could be that also. And like when you're rolling with someone and you can feel how intense they're breathing and how hard they're trying, and you're just kind of like chill. Mm-hmm. And you're that at that point you're centered and you're breathing and centered in your body, and all that, but you just maybe don't realize that that's what you're doing. You're just doing it without knowing it because you've been doing it for so long.
Let's take that for example. So let's like if I didn't the same scenario but not focus on me, let's say that the other person's breathing hard, right? Like, so what would you say to that person? Is it more like, to me, like the terminology would be like, hey man, like just chill out, just relax, breathe, take a deep breath in, breathe out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, well, if that's it, I mean, that's okay, like, but like I just hear these like blanket terms, like they go like, I center myself, I focus on my breathing, I do this, I'm like, that would do nothing for me. Like I need to know, like if somebody said, like you kind of did, like say, breathe in, breathe out, or take 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, like that makes sense to me. But like if somebody just says these blanket terms, I'm like, I'm always breathing, I'm always focused on it, or I'll die. Like, you know what I mean? Or like, center yourself. I'm like, I'm standing on the ground, I'm pretty centered, I'm not crooked. I don't know. Like it blows my mind because I'm ready to learn this stuff, and then it's like that's the same explanation I get every time, and I'm like, I can't connect with what's going on. So this will help. This, if nothing else, like if I can just figure those terms out right now, I'll be super happy.
What about, and I don't know if Michelle, maybe you feel this way, but it's also accepting the circumstances that are right now.
Yeah, being the here and now is And that's like the jujitsu part too. Like when you're in a bad position, you just like the first thing you do is like get frames in, make sure you're not getting totally crushed, and then calm down and assess where you're at and breathe, you know, slow your breath down. And or you could just like tweak out and make it worse for yourself. So I guess the yoga part of it is like assess where you are, get your frames in, and calm down and like use your technique and the things you know, instead of just like flailing around and hoping something happens.
Yeah. So in the same scenario that like, so if the guys, I mean, you're just whatever it does to take you to calm your breathing down, I guess is what,
Yes.
would that be what you're saying? Focus on your
For
breathing.
the
I already
yoga,
forgot what you said, but
yeah, the yoga part in jujitsu for how I find yoga helpful for those other than like the flexibility part and like helping your body stay less broken. Yeah, that just being able to calm down and connect with your breath when you're getting crushed or being in a bad position, I guess is.
okay. I mean, that helps because I like for like, and I'm not joking. I really, I bought, you know, a couple audiobooks, a couple real books on meditation too. And maybe I just get, as soon as that terminology comes up, I just throw the book away. Cause I'm like, you're not telling me what I need to know. This is why I bought this book. And then they're like,
Yeah,
just calm down,
being very
focus on this.
generic
And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Like, so I get more aggravated. You know, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Like to me, I know it's obviously I'm one of the few people because everybody's like gets it, but I'm just when I buy a manual, like when I learn a jujitsu move, it's this step, this step, this step. Nobody just said like, just focus on your breathing. Like, what's that mean? Like, I don't like, I bought Hickson's book called Breathe, didn't talk about breathing one time in the whole damn book. It was the biggest waste of my time. You know, I mean, like, I love the stories. I've already heard those stories. I was like, I was waiting for him to teach me how to breathe. They didn't say nothing. Like, you know,
For me, like
yeah.
I said, for me, a big part of it is just accepting the situation, accepting the circumstances that I'm in. And anybody who follows Kurt Osiander is like, you know, if you're in a bad position, you fucked up a long time ago, right? Well, you already fucked up. It's accepting that, right? Like if I'm in a bad position, I put myself here, I made my bed, now I've got to sleep in it, right? And that's the whole thing is like, if I'm in a bad position, now is not the time for me to go off and like really muscle stuff. The worse the position is, the more attention I have to pay to how much strength I'm using, how much I'm paying attention to the attacks or how much I'm paying attention to my defense. It's not for me a time to just like explode because they're in the position to ride that storm out without wasting any energy. And I'm in a position where all energy that I put out is wasted energy if they know what they're doing. So if I'm mounted or if somebody's in top side control and I'm just bumping and just throwing at any time, whatever, all I'm doing is like, if it's a health meter, right? If it's Mortal Kombat, my health meter is just draining, right? And so I can't just bump whenever. I have to bump in a timely manner. I have to do it in a position where like they've started to do something and it's advantageous for me to move now, rather than I have to be more reactive rather than be like proactive and attacking.
Yeah, looking at me, like I'm with you, right? Maybe I'm looking for an answer that's not there. Maybe I'm with you the whole time, but I'm still stuck on this term, right?
I think you get it. Yeah. You just don't get that you get it. If that makes sense.
Well, it does make sense. Yeah, no, you guys are helping. It does make sense because what you said, Michael, is what happens in the sauna, right? It also is what happens if you know, if I'm like, for, you know, I just did a 25K yesterday, which was stupid. I don't know why people do that stuff, but yeah, didn't have to worry about the breathing too much because I was ready to throw up from like 1 minute on, right? But the point, like, I was going to say a lesser race than that, but at the end where I'm like, I can't breathe, that's the kind of time where sometimes, you know, I'm like trying to get as much air in my body instead, because, you know, like that running is like a certain, it's like as you hit, it's like at least from, you know, like there's a certain cadence to it. And then sometimes when I'm super tired, I take that cadence out on purpose. And actually I'm trying to oxygenate because I feel like if I don't, I'm gonna pass out kind of deal. I think I'm
At
kind
that
of
point,
doing
you're
some
controlling
things.
your breath.
Yeah, you're focused on it. You're like concentrated on that inhale. Then that's fine.
Yeah.
That's the
That's
finding
it.
it part. You
Yeah,
know.
that's the part. And like
Well,
you're
that's important. So yeah, no, and that makes sense. I'm just, yeah, okay. That this is what I needed for
You
5
you
years
found
now.
it yesterday
You
at some
found it,
point. If you
yeah.
finished it, you found it. Dude.
Yeah, I mean, I also cheated a little bit, just, like throw it out there. I cut a couple miles off that thing at the end. I was like, I feel like I did enough.
That's good enough. That'll do.
Yeah, but okay, well that helps. I mean, because to go back to what Gary said, like it's the same thing. There's not a time, I mean, now that I am where I am now, there's not a time that I'm freaking out that much, right? Like, because I know better, right? But I would still, again, I guess I get lost, like when I'm listening to bring Hickson back up, and they're like, he was on Joe Rogan, and they're all like, that's one of the things that was so good for you. You learned yoga and you just knew when to breathe and blah, blah. So I'm like, I'm waiting for his answers, because I'm like, well, you must be doing something different, because everybody talks about it, right? Like, so what is that difference? Because it's the same. I'm conserving energy and waiting to do those things and that, but I'm just assuming that he's doing some magical stuff from this yoga breathing that I don't know, and maybe he is, and I'm still not found the answer. Right?
It's the thing about it is so simple. It is just like controlling your breath and not freaking out. Like that really, I mean, when it comes down to it, some of the most complicated things really are the most simple things. And I think this could be one of those things where you can find a lot more peace in uncomfortable positions in life by just like calming down and breathing. I mean, that's a little bit metaphoric, but yeah.
Well, you take it for granted because you do it. You just do it, right? If you get knocked out, I mean, hopefully you just continue breathing, right?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Being focused on it is just like helps you control it and shit. It calms your nerves. I mean,
and your breath and your heart rate also is correlated. So, if you're like hyperventilating and breathing really quickly, it makes your heart rate increase. So if you are in a situation where your heart rate is going crazy and your breath is going crazy, and if you just are able to like recontrol and regain control of your breath and having the breath in and out being the speed that you want it can help you slow down your heart rate as well. So then it just kind of helps you neutralize yourself in a situation in which you might be uncomfortable. Or
so when you're controlling your breathing, and I'm sorry, Gary, if I'm getting lost, and maybe you had some other plans, but I got to get some answers for this. It's been a lot of books, a lot of time. Do you have either a mantra type thing, or is it more, because that's the other thing, there's a lot of different kind of breathing, right, that I don't know about. I didn't buy, there's an actual book besides Hickson, it's also called Breathe, I think, and they actually teach you those things. Oddly enough, I didn't buy that one. I think I was just fed up at that point. But anyway, I just know they're talking about box breathing, things that I don't even know what that terminology means, but also, breathing in for 4 seconds, breathing out for 4. And that's the other thing. I don't know which one I should do, because when I listen to people, they all do different ones, right? I've done the 4 seconds one, makes the most sense to me, because it just like, I was like, I can count to 4 and I can count to 4 again. So I feel like that one's a pretty good one. Is there one that you, I know obviously just like anything, it's probably a personal preference, but is there one that would you use for, because another reason I heard some people, sometimes they said like they're having a hard time sleeping, they can kind of do that they'll just be like count their breaths in and out, and it like calms them down to where maybe that gets them to where they need to be.
I mean, there is a whole yoga branch for just like breath work, and it can get kind of complicated and really deep, but I really like things that are simple, and like the 4 breath in and out is something that I like to do, and I'll increase it to 5 as I maybe start 5 breaths in and 5 counts out and hold the breath for 5. But yeah, that's what I do. Or even sometimes try not to be so complicated. I just like slow my breath, close my eyes, follow my breath as I breathe in, and just follow my breath as I breathe out, and just find that connection. But counting really helps keep you connected. So yeah, the breath in and out and counting is what I like to go for. I'll do like 5 seconds, 6 seconds.
Or just do
what would you guys
inhale and the deepest exhale, that's good.
Would you, so since obviously I'm really interested in, like, is there one that you would recommend for me to like start with? And then the next thing I would ask then what things I should do those in, I guess that's a harder question. But first of all, let's just say like, what would you recommend? Like what you just said, maybe 4, then increase it to 5. Do you increase it more or you
I
stop
think
at
like
5?
you probably have the lung capacity since you are a runner, you're athletic, you have the lung
Which we're
capacity
not really, but-
up to like 5. So
He just did it.
Yeah.
you just
Yeah,
done just did it.
Yeah, I just showed up and suffered. Yeah.
The one that I like to do at the beginning of class, just to get everyone neutralized with their breath, is take a deep breath in for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold the breath for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then slowly release the breath for as long as you can. So make the exhale the longest exhale as you can. So you're really working on exercising the muscles around your breathing. So deep breath in for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold the breath for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then exhale super slow, and try to make each exhale you take the longer than the last. So you're working on, controlling the breath, the muscles around the diaphragm and in the lungs. Yeah. So that's what I would recommend. You have the counting in, you hold, really stretching out the lungs. And then as you let go, just making it super, super slow. And breathing in through the nose as well is important. It helps you control the breath coming in, and it also filters the air that comes into your body as well.
Writing all this
Mouth
down.
breathing,
just
no
so you
mouth
know.
breathers.
Don't breathe through, no mouth breathing.
So what do you, yeah, which is, I think I can breathe through my nose. It's hard. Yeah, I'm doing it right now just to make sure I can do it. It's just, I mean, I think I might pass out if I do, but I need exercise. I've got, obviously I have a big nose, but it doesn't, it's really like, it doesn't, I used to box, so it doesn't work very well. I
Yeah.
can't smell, I can't taste. I mean, I can kind of taste, I can't really smell, all from smashed nose, but and not COVID. It's just, it is what it is. But that helps. And I'm thinking of application. Is that something that you guys would say, like if somebody's getting ready for a match or a fight or something, would you recommend that to calm themselves, or not, or a different one? Or
Honestly, so I do it more for telling someone to chill out. You get that spazzy person in there, and if you match that energy, right, it never goes well. Then you just have everyone knocking each other's blocks off and people getting injured and whatnot. But you trying to tame the line, if you will, some of these new guys and young bucks or big guys, whatever. You get on them and whatever, you get in a good position. And as long as you do it with some grace and keep your breath, right, you can feel some of these people's blood pressure. I mean, you guys have experienced that, right? They're just going crazy. And I'll be like, I don't tell them to find their breath or nothing, but I'm like, listen to your breathing right now. They think about it, right? And then I'm like, listen to me breathe. And, obviously everyone's sweating and whatnot, but then there's kind of like an aha moment. Sometimes they just keep doing what they're doing until, hopefully they figure it out. But dude, I've done that a lot and gotten some like people to chill out. Honestly, they kind of think about it more. They relax more. So they're not just spazzing out, trying to do all this wasted movement. That white belt death grip, they say, so, and they can just calm down,
Sometimes they don't even realize that they're doing it until, or I mean, it could be anything. Like you don't realize you're doing it until someone like points it out to you, and then you're like, oh, I am breathing all crazy. But that is a good way, like you said,
just pointing it out so they acknowledge it, and that's them acknowledging their breath, aka finding it, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of do the same thing, right? I'll be rolling with a new guy or a new white belt, and I'll just get into a position where like I'll wait until he explodes, or I'll, if I'm in mount and he just really tries to like get out. And then after everything, because there's the big explosion and then the settle.
Yeah.
And as soon as the settle happens, I'll be like, what did that get you? What did that get you? Because if it got you nothing, you used all of that energy for nothing. And it goes back to the Mortal Kombat, like the health meter, like your strength meter is down now. All of that energy was expelled for nothing. So it tells me that you need to think about where you're applying your energy better. And so it's kind of the same thing. I'm saying the same thing to my guys. I just say it in a different way.
Yeah.
I'm not as
If I
smart
start
as you.
trying to piss them off, I'll just be like pinning them and they're spazzing. I'll be like, find your breath, you know?
Center in your Zen space.
The hell are you talking about?
I do want to kind of go back and Michael, I'm not trying to keep you out of this, but I do want to talk to Michelle. It's rare we get women on here.
No,
And,
dude,
we take advantage of it as much as we can. So as far as obviously, jiu-jitsu is dominated by males. What has been your experience as far as like rolling with guys, trying to find female partners to roll with? And do you feel accepted in the jiu-jitsu community as a woman? What do you feel that maybe is a hurdle that you've had to overcome? That's a lot in one question. I'm sorry.
I'll try to remember all the questions. So for me, my jiu-jitsu journey as a female has been pretty positive. And that has to, I think, do a lot with the fact that there have been so many women that have come before me that are badass black belts that I follow or have been following since I was white belt. So they've kind of paved the way and like set the tone for women being accepted in the gym. So I think that is a huge contribution to why my experience so far has been really positive. And then the gym that I came from, Steamboat Springs, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it just had a really great culture, and our professor there just was amazing. And I had a handful of female training partners and lots of dudes, and they've always been very respectful, respected my jiu-jitsu and, rolled me just like they would anyone else. And so that's always been very positive for me. And the one time there was a creepy dude, the second our professor caught wind of it, the dude was gone. So I always felt very safe and heard there. And that's what we strive to have at Digg City also, just like to basically, have that and provide that kind of feeling for other women that come in and train with us. And but I do understand that there are still gyms out there that can still be not as healthy, or the culture of it is still not as great for women. I follow a women's grappling page on Facebook, and I do still occasionally see stories where women are like, this is happening to me. And I've been fortunate enough not to have had any of those situations. So I do thank my training partners and the culture of the gym. And that's why I talk about the gym culture so much, but it is so important to have good leadership, good gym culture, so everyone can have a positive experience. And then I guess a hurdle would be getting female training partners. And because when I go to compete, I'm not used to rolling with other women that often, or especially women my size and stuff. So that is kind of the hurdle. And then the first time I roll them, it's at a competition, and then I have to adjust and like figure out.
And that's the crazy thing too, is like, I think that's the experience for most women, is that most women, their training partners are men. Mm-hmm. And so then you go to competition and yeah, there's one or two women that they roll with regularly, but it's not something that they experience all the time. And it's just around here or there. And I don't know. I train with guys all the time, so I don't have to worry about that. When I go and train, I'm training with guys. And so it's somebody of the same size and the same sex. So I don't have to worry about all of that. Am I getting the same training? Am I getting the level of training? And I am guilty of this. And I don't know if I'm assuming most men are guilty of this, but when training with women, I do roll a little bit different. And I guess it's trying to be polite. As a training partner, I don't want to smash. If I'm rolling with a woman, I don't want to smash her and put her. But I also want her to get ready for competition, if that's what she's doing. And so it's hard to find that equal medium of rolling with you just as another partner, but also like respecting the fact that like, hey, I've got this added advantage of 60 extra pounds, 80 extra pounds, and all the testosterone that's rolling through my monkey DNA that's there. So I'm not, and this is by no means me saying like, this is a problem for men. I'm not saying that. but I try and be respectful, but sometimes I don't know how.
Yeah, that can be, I don't know. It's rolling. I mean, I do roll with men that are the same size as me, and I am like 170, 180. So I am, you know, can be the same and bigger than a lot of the dudes that are rollers. So I'm not very much like very small compared to a lot of dudes. So sometimes I do feel like I don't know how to. And you do roll with the guys, and dudes' bodies are just
She's a mat enforcer. Legit.
No, I mean, when you just roll, their bodies are also just different. Like women are flexible in places that are different, and they're stronger in places. Like if I was to roll with a dude that was a purple belt, one my same weight, and then a girl the same weight, you were built different, you know. There's strength in different places, flexibility in different places, and that's like the thing about, like, even if I train with a bunch of guys, when it comes to comp time and I'm rolling with a girl, they just submissions hit different, you know. I don't know if that makes sense, but they just hit different on a female body. Yeah. So, and then for what you're saying about men, like, unless, what are you, like 220, 230?
Oh, I'm like probably right now, I'm probably close to 240.
240,
Like,
yeah.
I'm out of competition. I'm not really worried about food, and I don't run my 3 miles every morning like I did when I was competing. So I'm a
Yeah,
little
I
thick
mean,
right now, but and that's the thing, is like it's and it's almost one of those things where it's like, I know I have this unfair advantage, even over like guys like Michael. Like you said, you weigh 150 pounds. I already know that I have almost 100 pounds on you, right? I've got at least 80 pounds on you when we go to train. And so how much I'm constantly thinking about how much of my jujitsu is jujitsu because it's good, and how much of my jujitsu is jujitsu because it's size.
yeah.
And
And
that bugs me. It bugs me a lot because I really want to roll like a 135-pound guy. That's what I want to roll like. When people do when people are doing jujitsu with me, I want them to think like, Gary is good. If he weighed 135 pounds, he would wreck people. That's what I want people to think. But I know that I weigh 235. I know that that's my weight, and I can't change that. I guess for me, it's a constant struggle of how much of my, and maybe this is imposter syndrome kicking in too. Thanks, Butch, for giving me my black belt. I appreciate you. I love you. But also some of it is like, how much of this is real and how much of this is just me being like cornbread, farm raised boy, you know,
Yeah.
like how much of this is just size. And it's hard to negotiate that.
Yeah, working on like using technicality instead of smash power. It's a fine balance. I mean, it's an art form for a reason. I guess it is a fine balance. Yeah.
You guys are gonna have a hard time answering that because you've never been 240 pounds, right?
And I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I do appreciate, we do have a bunch of big boys that train, and they smash me, and I would be offended if they didn't smash me as hard as they could. So, and they do. And I think like the thing about the women, another thing in the women's conversation we were having about it, an obstacle, is that the weight class, I mean, there just aren't that enough women to train. And that is just, you know, it is what it is for now, and it is growing, but the weight class in a lot of competitions, it's like 165 and then up. So it can be some girl that's like 200, 230, and then, you know, me. So it's, so yeah, when it comes to training with dudes and that are super big and they smash me, I'm like, you never know. You never, in the women's brackets, you just never know like what size and shape the person will be. Because the weight classes are so limited for us.
Well, I will say this, that I've experienced something that I can kind of appreciate and understand, is as a guy who competed somewhere between 185 and 205 when I was competing, when I started jiu-jitsu, they would always roll me up. And so 205 was one of those weight classes that maybe you would have a big showing at a competition and there would be 8 guys in that competition, or there would be you, and they would come to you and be like, hey Gary, do you want to just go ahead and roll up to the the heavyweight division, and now I've got guys that are 265. And I was like, I cut weight to be at 205. Like I cut 6 pounds to be at 205, and now you're asking me to roll up. So yeah, I guess so, because I want matches. I didn't drive the 3 hours to be here, so to not do that. And this is kind of what women kind of have to deal with now. And so I appreciate that. I know what it's like to have to compete at a higher weight class, to compete against somebody who's bigger than you. And I think that helped my jiu-jitsu out. And honestly, like, some of the best practitioners I know are women. And it's just because they had to deal with that. Like, a lot of their training partners are men, and that they've had to deal with the fact that the men are bigger, the men are stronger, and so it has to clean up their jiu-jitsu. And we've talked about it.
Jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and we've talked about it on here. Joe Rogan has talked about it, as far as, like, if you want to learn real good jiu-jitsu, learn from somebody who's small. Learn from somebody who's 140 pounds. Because if they're a black belt and they're wrecking 245 blue belts, 245 purple belts, they've done that because they had to have perfect jiu-jitsu. And at 205 or 210, if you can get your jiu-jitsu to be like somebody who is 145 pounds, who had to deal with all that issue, like, your jiu-jitsu can be way more clean. And I always wanted to be that guy. I strive to be the guy who, I'm a bigger guy. I can't change my bone density, but I want to roll like I'm 140 pounds.
Yeah, I think we definitely have a handful of friends that are big dudes that roll like a little person, like a little small guy, but they're big, and it's just like they're killers. I mean, if you can have that combination, it's a good combination for sure. Being a big dude that rolls like a little dude.
It's like, it's weird, right? Yeah, I mean, this is like the ongoing thing, right? Like, it's we were talking at our gym the other day about just some of the heavyweight matches that are unfortunately so boring. Like, I've rolled with Jeff Monson and Tom DeBlas and some of the guys, and their style. And again, I know they can do everything. These are world class black belts and world class competitors. So I'm not saying anything bad, but a lot of times when they are in competition, there's not a lot going on, because they're just trying to, like, conserve energy, because they're big and they're going against other big people. And they just, like, if they're up 2-0, there's just not a lot you're going to have to get your points, and vice versa. Like, a lot of times when Tom was here, at least in this competition, I don't know how much, changes, but at least when he was in West Virginia competing, he didn't do a whole lot, and then he would try to score at the end. And that was much what Jeff Monson did. It was like the first, 4 minutes or so, there wasn't a lot going on. It's like, if they happened to be on bottom, you couldn't pass the guard, and then they would try to sweep you real quick. Or if they were in your guard, they just didn't really do anything for 4 minutes. They conserved their energy, and then they tried really hard to pass the last minute or so. And it's a great game. That's what works. It works for them. But is it, again, nothing again, those guys are world class. I'm saying it's not exciting if you're watching Gordon Ryan compete, who also competes at heavyweight. Sometimes, like, sometimes that's a different kind of ball game, right? Now, and it would be the same. I would prefer to watch somebody going at that, but most people can't do that, and I'm thinking, while you guys were talking, like, when I roll with our lighter guys and I try to roll like them, that's what happens to me. Like, it's different. Like, it's always different at the gym, because you have a little bit more energy. It's not, you don't have that anxiety, right? But if I'm trying to match them pace for pace and flop around, the other thing a lot of smaller guys do that bigger guys almost always never do is and again, it's not everybody, but their positioning is not as tight as like, say, Gary and I, we're probably more of a really pressure tight game. It's slow, it's tight, we're going to punish you. And it's like, it's just different, right? Where lighter guys don't care to give, like, again, generalizations, right? They don't care to give up position. It's a more a fast, loose game, which is exciting. And I remember one time when my coach Marcelo Montero was in, like, one of the guys, it was a good statement. I know what he's saying. He was telling our coach, he's like, I can roll both. I can roll fast and loose, or tight and slow. And, he got yelled at. He's like, there's only one game, it's tight and slow. Like, there's no fast and loose. That's not how you roll, right? Why would you give up position, right? But I knew what he was saying, right? There's a more dynamic thing. So even thinking when Gary was saying that you know, that you sometimes you just got to roll with what you do, right? Like it's harder. It's hard for all of us because I think sometimes big guys will do the same. They're like, I'm not going to smash this person or roll really tight and do this because maybe it's not fun to watch. Maybe it's not comfortable for the other person. Maybe they're not getting to do what they want to do. But then the downside is, so Gary was a competitor, or you know, I don't know if you still are. I don't mean it was in a term, but if
Oh no, at this point it is was. I'm
okay.
not I've not competed in a while. I need to
Yeah, I
have
didn't want
one
to
black belt
disparage you.
match just to get it out of there, but like right now it's a was.
Yeah, but it's like if you're not practicing your game, right, which is tight and smashing, then you're gonna suffer when you compete. And that's the age-old thing, right? So you kind of have to do what you're doing, which goes to what we were saying with Michelle there. It's the same. You got to do your game, right? And it's harder. I can argue, you know, as when I was an MMA trainer and boxing and kickboxing, I had the same problem with like one early on, one of my best fighters, he won some titles, some Muay Thai titles and kickboxing titles at 127, if I'm not mistaken. But those weight classes really small. He won them at like 27, and another one is at 29, one is at 132, like these crazy little increments, you know, all over the world he won. But um, he didn't have a lot of training partners, right? So I was like his main training partner just because of lack of people, you know, which I always thought hurt him, and I'm sure it did. He ended up doing, you know, obviously he won a bunch of world titles, but you know, he made the comment to me one time because it was kind of like a funny story, but we went to this competition just for like you know, background on him. But anyway, went to this competition. It's going to be like one of his first kickboxing matches, I think. And anyway, we were supposed to show up and fight this guy that was 0-0, right? Or 1-0 or 0-1, you know, whatever. Like that was the thing. I was like, my guy's never fought. It's going to be there. So we show up, the guys that they lied to us, as that happens a lot. And the guy he's supposed to fight was 11-0 and a kickboxing champion. So they 100% set us up so their guy could, you know, beat us, you know. So I was like, no, we're not doing that fight, you know. And of course, all fighters want to fight, you know, that's the thing. So that's also your job as a trainer to kind of protect them from themselves. And also, like, you got to stand your ground because if people know they can get away with stuff like that, it's not going to go well. So anyway, you know, long story short, like we compromised. Like, so I was like, no, we're going home, we're leaving. And then they offered this other guy who never kickboxed, but the kicker was he was 50-0 as a boxer. Or maybe not 50-0, he was 50 and something as a boxer, maybe, you know, lost. So like, you know, we're kind of screwed either way. But I was like, hey, you know, that one I would bend on. I was like, if the guy never kickboxed, we should be okay, right? And our guy ended up winning. It was like, it worked out really good for us because the guy was a boxer, was not a lie. He bobbed, you know, that story, bobbed when he should have weaved. He literally bobbed or weaved from a punch or slipped a punch right into a head kick and got knocked out right away, as a boxer should. And it worked out in our favor. But the point is, right before that fight, because I was like, hey man, this guy's a boxer, man. Like, you know, you spar with me, that guy's gonna be fast, man. Like I can't, you know, I was like, I know my limitations. I'm not fast. It's like, and I was trying to explain to him why I was worried about him taking the thing. I was like, I'm not saying you're not going to win. I explained all the things I said before, that we're kind of getting screwed and all this stuff. And I was like, plus you mainly spar with me, man. And what changed my mind was just the confidence he had when he looked at me and he just said, look, I spar with you every day. I'm not worried. This guy cannot hurt me. Right. And like, that's cool. Like, it made sense, right? Like it just caught me off guard. I was like, that's kind of probably cool, I guess. Right? Like, because I didn't look at myself that way either. I just looked at all the things I couldn't offer, right? Instead of the things I did offer, which was like, that guy at 130 pounds, it's not going to hit as hard as I do at, you know, 240 or 250, whatever weight at that time. And so that actually helped relieve him. I was like, okay, because that was the biggest thing I was worried about, is him just getting knocked out. Not saying that he still couldn't have by like 50 punches and got, you know, but that helped me later with other fights. So obviously, one, it worked out good in our favor. It could not have, but it also started to make me think of other things, meaning if I was training with you and I'm like, well, you're not getting that fast game, those quick submissions, this and this and this, right? But on the flip side, what you are getting is that maybe immense strength, that smashing thing, all those uncomfortable things that this other person cannot offer you. So if you weigh those, maybe one, it depends on the opponent, right? Like you might have somebody that really hurt you. Like, man, that game was so fast. I just wasn't ready for that, right? Like they were just flying all over the place and jumping, doing flying armbar. I wasn't ready, but like the flip side is like, they're not going to be strong as you. And if you're used to matching that other strength and seeing it, like there's always going to be plus and minus to those things, right? Like we all have that. Like the same thing. If Gary and I compete, all I do is go with lightweights all the time. And some dude comes in at 300 pounds and like, I'm like, whoa, wasn't ready for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all good and bad. I mean, we could probably, bust that down to every single one of us, right? And it is difficult. Right?
Well, and that's the dream, right? That all of our
Yeah.
training partners leading up to competition are better than our competition. Because if
Exactly.
all of my training partners are better than the people that I'm going to face, then they are nothing. I don't have anything to worry about. Right? I want my training partners to be guys who smash me, who are dominant. That way, when I go to competition, that those guys are nothing compared to what I see every day.
It's easy. It should be the easy day, right?
Yes. And that's the other, we can make it that way, no matter what combat sport we're in. If you're a real competitor, you're going to go and search that out. There's enough gyms now and enough gyms that are cool, right? Where they're not going to say you have to be part of our gym, right? Like, meaning just because you're training with us, you don't have to be, I'm not going to make you be under Henzo Gracie or this person. You can be under who you want and train with us, and or they're not going to try to kill you when you come in and everybody hates you and you're just whatever. Yeah. And if you do find that, unfortunately, there still are people like that. You can avoid that, but there's enough that you can do that. And that would be my other advice, which you guys know all, but maybe for people listening is like, look, yeah, we can make 1,000 excuses for all this. I don't have enough women to train with. I don't have enough people my weight. I don't have enough people this strength. I don't have enough people this good. They're all excuses now, especially in Ohio. So many gyms in Ohio, right? Like West Virginia too, there's a lot of gyms, but definitely Ohio, right? Like you can go anywhere and train with like really killer people. So really, like, the things that we do lack in our gyms, and we're always going to lack that, we can make up with other people, right? And so I think that's part of it, just being like self-realization. Like if you're a competitor and you're not getting something, then try to go out and get it. And then you don't have those excuses anymore, right? Like, and I think that's the simple answer for all that. Like there isn't, especially just, talking about the female stuff, there's not a lot of females, right? Like my weight classes in my tournaments, like 135 and under or 135 and up. And like never are those packs, so like, what I mean? And like, it just is what it is. I remember I had some girl call me one time complaining. She's a nice girl, but I forget why she was complaining. She was in like, maybe she was 160 and went with somebody that was 210 or something, right? But I was like, she complained, like, you need to switch the weight classes. And I said, lady, man, I've been for 20 years. It's like, it don't matter. Like, I wish you didn't go with a 200 pounder, but you were the only two people. So if I switched the weight class, guess what? You'd still went with each other. Like, I don't know why we're having this conversation. Like, I wish there was more girls. There's not, what I mean? And there's not a lot coming to West Virginia tournament. Like there is in our bigger thing, like we'll have some, but then once we get into belts, then it gets even crazier. I have a ton of white belts that are at certain weights, right? But then, last tournament, like we had a purple belt sound, like it's not, or a brown belt too. Like there's never going to be brown belt girls. There's just not. Like I would have to set that up before we go and find somebody, and it's just one of those things. That's a separate thing, but it is tough, right? Like I get it. Like nobody's going to understand those problems. They're just not, right? Like I mean, it's as far as the female competition stuff goes, but yeah, it's just crazy, the stuff that we go through. Right?
And that kind of brings us to the question of like, how do we get, because the two things that I've always said is that all women should train jiu-jitsu and all women should know how to use and carry a gun. That's just my personal opinion. It's like, those are two things. You should know how to do jiu-jitsu if you're a woman, and you should know how to use and carry a gun. And the truth is like, even in my household, my wife nor my daughter train jiu-jitsu or carry a gun. So like, how do we get that? How do we make that a thing? How can I show the importance and relevance of jiu-jitsu for women? Because I really do think that jiu-jitsu is the ultimate equalizer.
Yeah.
I
got lucky. That's all I know.
Yeah, but I've rolled with guys who wait, and you do it every day, Michael. but I don't do it. Like, but I've rolled with guys who are 40, 60, 80 pounds heavier than me. And my jujitsu was good enough to nullify that weight and strength advantage. Like, how do we express the importance of something like jujitsu for women?
Oh man, that's like the age old question.
Yeah.
That shit's deep. I know. I'm sorry.
I mean, it is becoming more mainstream now, so I'm hoping maybe that'll be helpful. But it isn't. I mean, it's just jujitsu is a fight sport, and not all women want to be engaged in that kind of. But there are also lots of self-defense systems out there that are based off of jujitsu, and I think that's a good way to get women, not just women, but people who might not be like wannabe fighters, but they all deserve to know how to defend themselves. Every human being should know, deserve the knowledge on how to defend themselves. But yeah, how do you just one?
There's something
Somebody
I
else.
saw, like I saw someone on Instagram, and I'm not going to remember who it was, or Facebook or something, but they were interviewing a lady who teaches jujitsu, but also I think this is what the interview was like. She had made successful women's programs at multiple places, and that's why they're interviewing to see what it was. And I just skimmed the article. It was nothing really earth-shattering, but it was things that I've seen done before. And it was just like starting with a couple girls and then trying to make female only open mats and just make things where they're essentially making it more with like separating themselves on purpose, right? Because then they can bring in more people that feel comfortable. Because you're right, like I think the problem is it's hard enough to get girls to do, like you said, fight sport, but you're asking them to literally conform to be in the men's room and do the things the men do. And then we're asking, why isn't there more? Like, because we're not changing that for the females, right? Which is hard. So like, because it's also taught by a bunch of men that think it's fine, and it is kind of fine, right? But it's like the hardest part is getting started. I'm not going to ask, and I'm not comparing women to teenagers either, but I'm just saying I wouldn't have a bunch of 13-year-olds in my men's class and then like wonder why they're not staying all the time, right? Because it's just a different energy and a different thing. So I think that's what she was saying. Like, and it's hard. Like, I think you need to start, like, once you get a couple girls, and then you're trying, like, it's harder to start like an open mat with just 2 girls, right? Like, so then you're actually having to talk to other gyms and try to build this up. And it's for example, in West Virginia and probably Athens for that point, like, that's hard because we're not in, Cleveland or Denver, Colorado, or some place where I can just go down the road and start cherry picking some people and they all go together, right? Like the West Virginia, I think they do a good job here. There's a few gyms like in Huntington that has some girls, in Morgantown and Hurricane, they say it here, but and they'll kind of all get together, right? But I do think that's the thing, is that you actually have to kind of separate it a little bit to make people more inclusive. Like when we had a decent women's program going, it's funny because all those girls end up doing kickboxing now. And they're still in the gym. They just chose a different thing. They had more fun, but that's essentially what happened is, there's 3 or 4 friends and they did jujitsu together. They love to do jujitsu together. It went great. But then ultimately what happened was that they weren't getting more people. And then some of those people decided they didn't want to do jiu-jitsu, or how it is, like, people don't stay at the gym forever, right? Like life gets in the way, right? Or New Year's resolutions are over and it's like time to do something else, right? Like we're all lifetime combat people. That's what it is, but most people aren't. And ours kind of petered away for that reason, and it is what it is. But I think that's the answer. Right? Like, because even to go back to what you said, Gary, but like the gun, same thing. I agree, and I teach self-defense seminars all the time. I train with Hoist Gracie, and we did the Gracie self-defense thing. And a lot of girls come in. First of all, it's funny because they take these seminars and then want to argue with me the whole time they're there, like that they don't need to be here because they have a gun, like, which is the goofiest thing ever. And I was like, well, where's your gun? In my purse. So like, by the time I surprise attack you, you'll never get your gun. Like, do you practice getting it out of your purse? Do you have an accessible place? Like, the answer is always no. It's always no. I'm like, well, then you don't have a gun, because I'm not going to go up to you and say, hey, I'm going to attack you now. And then you dig in your purse and shoot. Like, you're already attacked. Like, you're going to have to get to that thing. So then you would need the jujitsu to get to your gun. I'm like I never say jujitsu is better than a gun, because it's not. I never, or vice versa. Right? Like, but you need these things to get to that gun in the worst case scenario, and or have it, you know, accessible. Even if, and all of us had a gun, like you're gonna have to practice getting it out. You're nervous. It's just, that's why we practice jujitsu. It's like it has to happen in a natural, you know, way that's all muscle memory.
Yeah.
And so the point,
Actual
it's
skill too.
exactly, and none of this is easy, right? Because we're all humans, and most humans are lazy. I'm lazy, right? It's like I have a concealed carry thing. I've never carried a gun. I don't ever go to the range. But like in my mind, I'm like, I'll just shoot somebody. It doesn't work that way. I also don't really want to shoot nobody.
That one time.
Yeah, it's what. But I'm just like them. Like that's why I can speak to those people confidently, because I'm like, I know I'm just like you. It's funny how the military guys that have been trained way harder than us and way better, all my other friends that are in the Marines that do this, do that, guess what? They train all the time. Like they're always pulling their gun out. They're dry shooting. They're going to the range. They're doing this because they know, like it's not that easy, right? So it is a tough one. You know, like I see what I see on the internet, like for my friends that have self-defense type Gracie jiu-jitsu type stuff, man, they have great numbers, right? And they do really good. And the way they get the females in are the, like what I quote unquote soft jiu-jitsu. And that's the part that we kind of struggle with, because everybody on this podcast right now, we're not into that. Like I am into empowering women, making them feel comfortable. But if I had to teach that every day, I would not do jiu-jitsu. This is not my thing. I'll teach it every now and then. It's just not my thing. You know what I mean? Like I don't enjoy that. Like I want to do. Now the thing is that stuff works against somebody that doesn't know anything, right? It does. But I want to teach you how to do stuff that they don't want you to do it, and they know what you're doing. That's fun for me. That's beautiful. And then we can do it for 10 years, like together. Most of the time when you're learning that stuff for fun, you don't do it forever. You're in and out. The numbers are huge, but like, and then you do the same thing as the gun. You're like, I did Gracie self-defense. I did this. I'm at home. I'm the killer, man. I do that. I can beat anybody. That's what they think. Just like I think I took that concealed carry thing 20 years ago, that I can still shoot somebody. I can pull it. Like realistically, I know none of that's going to happen. Unfortunately, those people that all take those classes, they think they're going to be able to do that, and or they get these goofy belts in jiu-jitsu that like don't go across. And I'm not slamming any of those things. It really does sound like that. I'm not. That's just not my thing.
He's not slamming. I'll slam those places that
Well,
I'll slam them.
Or agree with
That's
everything.
a whole nother
Yeah.
podcast.
Everything.
It is.
Well,
It is.
Everything. Yeah, we agree with all that for
So,
sure.
I mean, as far as like, I mean, I know I'm not a woman, but our dynamic, obviously, like, dude, I roll hard as shit with Michelle. You know, like I don't take it very easy on her. You know, she doesn't take it easy on me. I always joke with her, like, if I'm gonna get hurt in training room, she's gonna break my ribs. You know, and the women that I train with in Steamboat Springs were all killers.
Yeah.
I mean, animals.
Yeah.
And maybe I can get away with it, but and I'm a little bit smaller, so I'm like roughly like the same weight as some of the most women that come in there, you know, being 150 or average. And I don't really like take it easy on them. Like everyone wants to be treated equal nowadays. So like I'm not a dick. You got to be like the subtle dick moves of jiu-jitsu, right? So I just roll with them like normal, you know. And I don't know. It's always just been a good dynamic with us both. And so, you know, you don't. The watered down jiu-jitsu part, like I think it's horrible because it's like a false sense of security, you know, and I don't agree with that at all. And everyone just wants to be treated equal. It's as simple as that. It's like the breathing, just breathe, you know, think about your breathing, just treat them like fucking normal people, right? Because they are.
Well,
you know?
you
gotta watch where you're grabbing every now and then and fiddle around with some hair or something, but like you know, it's pretty simple.
Well, this kind of goes back to the hard point for us bigger guys that like roll with women. Like when I roll with a woman, I want her to know that I am doing my jiu-jitsu just like I would do with any other guy. And it's real hard to not feel like an asshole doing that.
Yeah.
Like
but
the
you gotta
round
work on your finesse though. You gotta work on your finesse a little bit.
Yeah, but like the round that me and
yeah.
Michelle, and I don't know how Michelle felt because the last time I was there, and damn, you're good. But the last time I was up at Digg, I got around with Michelle, and it was like trying not trying not to feel like a dick, but also trying not to feel like I'm sugarcoating.
Yeah.
That's the hard thing.
a
That's the
false
hard
sense
thing.
of
Yeah.
security on what my jujitsu is or whatever. But then that becomes like the finesse part on the bigger person, because I do roll with a lot of people who are smaller than me too. So I kind of get what you're saying about that. Like, am I using jujitsu or am I just smushing them into the ground? And then I'm like, okay, now I have to flow around and actually use my, jujitsu and
well, and that was one of the things, is like, I gave you an inch and then you took a mile. And I was like, I can't do that with her. Right? Like, I can't, yeah, but like, I gave her an inch and she was like, oh, you're gonna give me some rope, I'll take all of it. And so that was one of those things where it was like, I had to, like, I don't want to be an asshole. And I want as many women to do jujitsu as possible. But for
that
me, like,
does
at what point am I compromising jujitsu?
Yeah, the watered down jujitsu does get women on the, like, women or just people on the mats, but then it's like, yeah, then now you're teaching
I
watered
think
down.
I have the answer, which I really don't, but I think I do. This is what I'm thinking. I think this is my answer. I think when you, if we're confused, we should just ask the person how hard they want us to roll. I think there's the answer.
And you can usually vibe that. We've all been doing it long enough to kind of gauge what people want from it.
I know I'm being funny, but we really do. That is kind of the answer, right? And it is that simple.
It is.
And here's why I thought of this. I was thinking these weren't women. These two things are not women, but there's like here's what I'll just say, that like I rolled with Hoist Gracie like several times, right? And when I first met him, I had asked him on the internet. This is back when the internet wasn't very popular. Like, you could just write people and they wrote you back. It wasn't like, you was one of my millions of followers. There's, so I write him and I was like, hey man, like, would you, long shot too, I was like, would you train me? This is probably I don't know, early 2000s, late 90s, something like that, And of course, and he wrote back, was like, sure. I'm like, really? Well, damn. Okay. Like, would you come to West Virginia? And he's like, sure. If you set up a seminar, it's not free. I was like, okay, cool. So that started off that way. But again, it was like, I didn't know what to expect. It's not like everybody, jujitsu really, there's no jujitsu in West Virginia, right? Like, there wasn't like instructors and stuff like that. I mean, there was people at gyms, like I obviously had one, but we were all blue belts. And so anyway, when he came, I thought that the test was like, I had to like try to kill Hoist. That's what I thought. Right. So like I went after him, like, but I not like because I was an asshole, which ultimately that's what it looked like, right? Like I was going after him, but again, I didn't have the skill set. So you remember he did a bunch of stuff to me. Like, he popped my arm and like I just got back up, and I was like, I thought that was part of the test, like to show that I was tough. So like I rolled over, I was like, let's go again. So they put me a choke, and I would like wait to like a very last second to tap, and I would like be trying to throw, because I was a lot bigger than him. I was trying to throw him across the room, this and that. So he would just kick my ass harder and harder, all things I thought like that was good, right? And so then I'm, of course he's there for me. So like I'm waiting in my car for him to come down. He comes, he's pissed. Like gets in the car, and he's like, don't you fucking test yourself against me. I'm like, that's what you're here for. Like, literally, it's like a very confusing conversation. I was like, well, now what I'm supposed to do is, no, you're supposed to test yourself against a blue belt, which you are, not against me. You're not going to beat me. Like, I'll kill you. And I was like, oh, so that's why you're going so hard. He's like, yeah. He's like, if you beat me, it'll be all over the internet. I beat you, nobody cares. Calm the fuck down. Like, I was like, oh shit, okay. So then scratch that to years later, Daily Hiva comes, right? And I roll with him. I'm a brown belt at this time. I go super light with him because I'm like, I don't want to hurt this guy. He's an old man. He's not even that really old, actually, but I'm like, yeah, I'll just go really light. So then we, similar situation, go back to my house later. I'm laying on the couch. He barely speaks English. So it's kind of going through Marcelo as a translator, but getting yelled at again. Why you go so light with me? I'm like, well, hopefully I didn't say nothing stupid. Like I didn't want to hurt you. So, I don't know. I was just trying to be like, just go easy. I don't know what you mean. He's like, that's super disrespectful. Like, you think you can beat me. Like, next time, give me all you got. I'm like, God damn, I can't win. Like, I don't know what to do. That was the day that I decided, everybody I roll with, and since then, that's like a superstar. They come in, I'm like, what do you want me to do? Like, how does you want to, and they said, like, let's just go, let's have fun. okay, when you say have fun, just like I had to ask all those questions, maybe I'm very obtuse. Like I have to like when I was like, how do you control your breathing? I'm like, all right, so when you say have fun, what does that mean? My version of fun might be different than yours. Like, are we going really hard? Are we not good? Like I have to literally ask, right? So I don't think you have to be that crazy, but I do think like if you're going with a female, you're doing this, you're doing that, and you're worried, just say, hey man, like what are we doing right here? Do you want me to try to smash you? And then say it in a respectful way. Like again, that might sound really like I would say, like, I'm not saying that I could, but I weigh heavier than you. Like, what do you want me to do? Because I tell you, like, this happened in the same kind of scenario, like several times when we had girls who people thought wanted to roll hard, because like we had a girl that's a purple belt, does that, they would leave the gym slamming stuff because they said somebody went too hard with them. And I literally watched it, was not too hard. So there's two different versions right there. Instead of them getting so mad, which that actually made me mad, because I'm like, I know that guy was trying to do the best he could. Like, this girl's got a purple belt on. He's a white belt. We know white belt spaz, right? And for them to leave like throwing stuff and just complaining and saying everybody goes too hard, I'm like, well, you're kind of like we said earlier when we started, like you're the one that has to kind of set the boundaries, or vice versa. Now you're still going to run into white belts like me that, I was a blue belt, but when I went with Hoist, it was an asshole. I was basically like spazzy white belt because I thought he was what he wants, right? But that's the thing. I think the answer is like, let's talk, right? That's part of the communication. Like, how do you want this to happen? And then you can go, then it's a simple, clear cut thing. Because even after all of us have the conversation, we all know there's certain people you still don't want to roll with, right? Like there's certain guys that I roll with now that I know every time I roll with them, I'm going to have a black eye. They throw elbows, knees, they roll too hard. They're not fun to roll with. And there's people that will grab me. My best Jiu Jitsu friend, Rick Bowman, not to call him out, but he'll say, let's flow roll. We're flow rolling as long as he's winning. So like the second I start doing something, like now we're basically like, he's trying to kill me, right? He doesn't even know that's happening. But it's like, I'm like, here's an arm bar, right? And then he goes for it. That's flow rolling. And I'm supposed to escape. I try to escape. He's holding me. I'm like, well, that's not how this flow rolling goes. I guess we're going for real, right? So anyway, I'm being kind of funny, but like, I think that's the thing. It's like
That's
communication,
how
like
when
a
I
man.
roll
So.
my flow with Michael, if I'm
She just
winning, then it's
turns
flow rolling. Then when she starts reducing me, I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to flow like roll like that? It's like, as long as for like the next hour, I'm just smashing you and running through submissions. That's like that's the funnest thing, right? Like that's pretty good. But yeah, I think honestly, I mean, like, don't you think maybe that's the like for people that's listening, that's probably the thing. Like if you're unsure, just ask. I mean,
I took
I
a
saw
lot of
another.
that. Yeah, that makes sense. Simple as that.
I saw a really good thing. If anybody, I don't know if you guys follow her or you haven't, but Nikki Sullivan.
And that's the thing is like communication is key. Like, and it's not just women and men either. Like I've got guys who are hobbyists that I train with regularly now. And I told them like, hey, when you come in, don't roll with that guy. Because he's a competitor. Like, why are you trying to roll with him? He obviously has different goals. He has a different path that he is on. You are on a path that I want to get my blue belt. I want to get comfortable with jiu-jitsu. I want to get comfortable with grappling. He is on a path where I want to go to like to world masters, or I want to go to worlds. I want to go to Pan Ams, and I want to like win some shit. And you're on a path of, I want to get more comfortable with the idea of that if shit goes down, that I'm okay. Those guys don't need to be rolling together. That's the reason we have competition classes versus regular fundamental classes. It's like, hey, these are two different paths, right?
That's
the blue belt. The blue belt path should be, if shit goes down and I'm attacked on the street, that I can hold my own until the cops get there. And I tell all my blue belts this, like, if you want a blue belt under me, all I ask is that you can contain this incident to, can I hold you until the cops get here? That is the key.
Yeah.
Are you able to like get into a good guard? You're hugging them down, you've broke their posture, maybe you swept and come up on top, and you wait until the cops come and you don't have any, maybe you take a punch or two and that's it. That's what I want out of my blue belts. My competitors, you should be ready for war. if you're a competitor. But if you just want to be, if all you want is a hobbyist blue belt, then I want you to be comfortable in the idea that you go home safe to your wife and kids if something happens. That's what I want for my hobbyists. If you're a competitor, I might hold you back a little bit because you're going against guys who are competing in jiu-jitsu for somewhat. And I was that guy. I wanted the glory. I've got a whole, I've got belts and I've got medals and all that shit's fun to have. But there was competitive, I want to fight people. I don't expect that out of my hobbyists. I don't want that out of my hobbyists. I want them to know that, hey, if shit got squirrely, that I could go home to my wife and kids at the end of the night. That's all I want out of my blue belts, right? There's 40 techniques. If you can do these 40 techniques, then that means you can go home safe to your wife and kids. That's what I want. And so even, and it's not a male female. We've got Angela who used to train with me regularly down here in North Carolina. And Angela would wreck a lot of my blue belts, a lot of the guys who were white belts that were her size or smaller. And it's because she's not a purple belt woman. She's a purple belt competitor. There's a big difference. There's a huge difference. And she gave as a brown belt, black belt, she gave me problems. She's not the same.
Said, a competitive purple belt could easily catch a black belt that's just not a hobbyist black belt, and it's just that's real. But everyone's belt's different for every person.
Everyone's got their own path, Yeah. I like to have make sure if I do have competitors and hobbyists in the same room, because then you get those hobbyists that sometimes start to lose the confidence or whatever, because they're well, we're not ever going to be as good as so-and-so, the star in the gym, whoever that might be, right? But then it's they're just as important, right? And whether they can spar with the competitor or not, if usually they end up going together, right? It's dude, I preach kind of having the self-awareness and the discretion. Obviously you don't smash the 55-year-old guy, if you're 21 years old on the wrestling team,
and having that respect.
Yeah, and I feel like it goes hand in hand, makes everyone better ultimately. It's kind of like the big guy rolling with a small 110-pound girl. You got to use a little discretion, but you can still use jiu-jitsu. And if you use your jiu-jitsu right, and it's going to be very tight, and it's going to work on your tech. It's going to help you get tighter. So when you do it on a guy your size, it'll be extra tight, and then you can add that weight in there, and there you go.
Well, and that's a big thing. I my biggest regret in jiu-jitsu is that early on when I was competing a ton, white through purple belt, and I was competing all the time, is I am almost certain that I ran people off from jiu-jitsu. And it was because my jiu-jitsu path was not their jiu-jitsu path. I thought everybody wanted to, everybody is here to kill everybody else. That was my thought. That was my mind frame. And I know that I ran people off from jiu-jitsu because of that. And it is my biggest regret. And now as an instructor, as somebody who is my focus is teaching, is to say, hey, that there are two different paths. Not everybody is on the same path. Not everybody is in here for the same reasons. When I'm obviously a different person now at 42 than I was at 32, but I wanted to win at all costs when I was 32. And now I just want people to enjoy jiu-jitsu as much as I do. And so that's my biggest regret as a practitioner, is that I probably ran a lot of people off who would be hobbyists that would be really good purple belts or brown belts by now. And they're not doing jiu-jitsu because I was trying to get ready for competition. I just smashed shit out of them. And I happen to be a little bit younger and I happen to be a little bit faster, and I smashed them. And it's probably my biggest regret in jiu-jitsu is that I did that.
I've heard Tom DeBlas on Instagram. He's great at Instagram, but he echoed the same thing. He literally almost word for word is that if he had to look back at something he would change, that was it. Just that he didn't understand. I mean, none of us. That's a problem, right? Even when you're being told you just still don't get it because you're trying to achieve some success. And I've still got friends that I started with, and I see their posts on social media, and they'll say like, they'll literally, I saw my friend Eric not long ago wrote something that jiu-jitsu is not for everyone. If you can't cut it, get out. And I would say my friend Rick that I mentioned, he says the same thing, right? Because I've told him a few times like the same thing. I'm like, and he's a I think either a 1 or 2 stripe black belt, second degree black belt, but he same. If you can't cut it, don't be here. And he's like, that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu, is like you don't deserve that belt unless you can do it, right? I see it both ways, right? It kind of goes back because we're also saying, like it's just difficult. Like I think what happens as you get older, for most people, not everybody, but for most people, is what Gary said too, is that the older I got, because I was one of those guys too, we were a fight gym, right? And that's the thing, we're getting ready for fights. So like that was our focus, right? But now I'm not that. I'm a gym that I want it to be for everybody. I want to do, again, what Gary said, is I want everybody to enjoy jiu-jitsu and be exposed to jiu-jitsu like I did. We all have different things. Like I want some desk jockey guy that's not athletic to be able to come to the gym every day and have fun. Same thing for a female. I want them to feel safe and have fun, right? And learn something valuable. And they may not. I just had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day at the gym because he was a little upset. He was having a hard time, and he was losing to some of the younger guys, right? He's a blue belt, but even maybe some of the white belts were able to tap him, right? And he's just like, man, I feel like I'm not getting any better. Maybe I'm getting worse. And, the conversation, it's kind of hard when you get that conversation right. Well, I don't know if I give the best answers, but, sometimes you just can't beat these 18-year-old people that are, either steroided up or not steroided up, or they're just different, right? They're in a different thing.
World,
Yeah, and ironically, to go kind of back, or coincidentally, I always struggle with how to use that word, but to go back to what Gary said earlier, he found one of our older podcasts that was about the 10,000 hour thing that we made. Gary, you may remember, but we just kind of sent the picture, and he said, I listened to this and this really helped, right? And I think the thing was, probably, if I'm guessing, because we didn't follow up on that, is that if a person's in the gym training every day, literally 5 days a week, 6 days, 7 days a week, and doing that, and you're showing up once or twice a week, very minimally, you guys aren't the same, right? You're just not, right? It's the same goes for me. Like, just like you guys said a minute ago, like if you're a hobbyist black belt, that's what I would be considered now. Like I go, I train a couple days a week, and I'm trying to train as much as I can, but it's not the same as a purple belt that's going across the country doing all this stuff day in and day out. For example, my friend Lee from Bridgeport, Morgantown, from that ground zero, he's at B team right now training with the guys in Austin. He's a killer purple belt, right? Like he goes and trains every day and studies every day. What do I do every day? Like play with my kids and like, what I'm saying? Like it's a different thing, I mean, it's just a different thing. And at some point you have to understand, that's a very difficult thing to understand sometimes too, is that you've got to take a look in the mirror. And this is what a lot of people ask about the same thing. I think we've had this conversation now, is there's things that I take out of my life right now because I know what my brain will do. Like if let's say jiu-jitsu, if I want to compete and they said, just do it for fun, man, just go out there, have fun. Marcelo tells me that all the time. Go out there for fun, man. Well, like, first of all, winning is fun, right? So that means to me, like I need to win. So if I go out there and I don't win, the first thing I'm going to do, jokingly, will be write one of those stupid posts everybody writes on social media where I was here, right? But the other thing would be,
I learned today.
Yes, I know, the same post everybody makes, right? But the next thing would be, I got to catalog what I need to do to get better to win. I'm not going to just stop because, again, that wasn't fun. I lost. So to win would be, I need to train more. I need to do this. I need to do that. Blah, 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 blah. Right. And it goes. So then I'm going to have to take all this other stuff out. They're not willing to take out. My friend, again, not to mention my friend Rick all the time. He's the one that told me that a long time ago, because now he only goes to jiu-jitsu 1 day a week. Right. But he's like, he mountain bikes. He does this. He does that. He works a lot. And he's like, in order to do all of the things, I have to put them in little buckets and what I'm going to give the most time to. And then I have the biggest bucket of all is my family, my wife, and my kids. Right. And your real job is the other thing too. Most of us have real jobs. So like all those things can't suffer for jiu-jitsu that you're not really making money off, like a little different if that's your, you have a gym and stuff. But anyway, that's the point. Like, you have to catalog those things. So you're categorize those things and take real ownership of those, and then know what your limitations are. So again, to my friend that I didn't probably answer it correctly at that time, that's the other thing. You just look like, why is this guy being? I know that most of those white belts and blue belts that are young are there all the time. One, because they don't get sore like us, and they can train all the time, right? And he can't, and he has other interests, right? Like the guy does some stand-up sometime, he does some kickbox, he does this, he does his other things besides jiu-jitsu. So it's okay. It is okay, right?
Yeah.
And that's, all those things come in factors, right? But like what I want to say, like to kind of bring that around full circle, like how, because I think we've done a good job of asking all these questions about female jiu-jitsu, but I want to talk about your gym, and not just, because you're female, do it, but like, how are you going to answer those questions? How are you going to separate those people? How do you bring people into your gym, and what makes your gym answer all these questions and bring all these people together? Does that make sense? I know it's a big giant question, but
I mean, on that question, I can relate to a lot. Like, when you miss training, I mean, I'm sure you guys can relate, like, you beat yourself up, you get all guilty, and then let's say you have to take off a day or two because of just life, whatever happens. And then like I'm saying, you feel all guilty, and then you don't like actually rest or relax, and then you just like beat yourself up a little bit, And then being an owner, and I used to get this because I coached in Steamboat, so I've got like some experience there, thankfully. But people will message you or just tell you, and they'll like give you all these excuses why they can't make it that night, and you can like just like feel the energy via text or whatever message. You're like, dude, like calm down, you got shit to take care of, like relax, and I mean, kind of the same thing with the losing to so-and-so. Like, don't worry about that, like, don't train with them. Like, I'm never going to bust your balls because you sat out around or you didn't train with so-and-so. And like, dude, I tell everyone that, like, everyone at my gym's heard that, and I want to keep it that way, to make it sure everyone has fun, but yeah.
and I think that's
just addressing it and talking to him, like everyone's an individual case. You want to see someone progress in their own individual way. And it might be a lot of work, but it's not a one size fits all. It's not like just like you show up, you get a check, and then you roll out and you did the lesson, and then, oh, you get your blue belt, here you go. It's everyone's kind of a custom case in a way, and I don't want 10 gyms. I just want one good one. I can be there and grow and eventually have some more coaches that have the same like mindset, to spread that word of taking care of each other. And I mean, I'm so grateful on the crew we already have, honestly, and the mindset that's already being put on there. Like the first 2 weeks we were open, no one knew who the hell we were. There was blood all over the mats, everyone's feet are tore up, and now it's chilled out a little. We still go hard, but it's relaxed a little bit, and the tone is set, and it's hopefully going to do nothing but get better, So that's kind
so
of.
how would you say, like, if I am in near Athens, right, and two different people, and I want to know how you're going to do, both, or take this as like an advertisement, right? So one person is they want to do every competition that's nearby, right? Naga, Grappler Industries, Fuji, Art, whatever, right? And another person is just like, hey, like, I just want to get in shape and have fun, and like, this jiu-jitsu stuff looks cool. How do you treat each of those people in the same gym?
As far as me, I treat them same, see what they want to do, what their goals are, right? Which is what you just stated. But then you just roll with them, like I'm only one man, right? So like, obviously it's the hobbyist. I'm not going to roll as hard as the competition guy. And the guy that comes in there typically that wants to be the ultimate fighter, they don't stick around too long for the most part. You know what I'm saying? There's guys that come in there and say they want to do all this and do all that. They don't stick around. So I might treat that guy that just says he wants to get in shape a little better. You know what I'm saying? Because he didn't come in with that hot head. The first thing I heard, and you guys have all heard this, I put money on it. Leave your ego at the door. My coach said that to me, and it's pretty cliche, but I mean, I had never heard it at that point, and that made a lot of sense to me. And I thought I was a street fighter, you know, went in there and got my butt whooped, and I was hooked, you know, from day one. So you just kind of, I'd rather not my hobbyist roll with that guy. You know what I'm saying? The first couple times they come in, like, that's my job, you know, is kind of how I look at that. And so you just kind of see where it goes from there, I guess, you know. And
yeah, and we're lucky enough at this point that even so early on that we do have a handful of gym enforcers, or people who we know have the competence and the strength and the ability to roll people who want to come in, and if their goal is to be a fighter or have that be like their dream, like that's, I mean, if you show that that's really what you want, and prove to us, or you know, like that you show up and you train and you put in the work and it's not just some crazy dream. I mean, we're lucky enough that we have people in there that can give them the hard rolls, but then they can also tone it down and roll with the hobbyists with the roles that they want. And that's the cool thing about, I think, having a good dynamic and a good gym culture, is that, like, you know, that everybody knows each other's goals, and we know each other in that kind of level. And I know how this person's going to roll, and maybe I am competing, so I'll roll harder with this person. I know that they know that, and I know that they can handle that, but maybe I'm competing, but I'm rolling with this other person, and they don't like to roll hard. And you have, people, the people who don't like to train like super hard, that's not fun for them. They like to do that flowy stuff, which I also love. And you just know each other well enough that you can custom adjust your roles and your training with them. And that's like the relationship part, building the relationships and knowing them as people, and not just like a membership, if you will. And at our old gym, it was like that. Like, our professor promoted us not just on how many times we showed up to class and how many lessons we took, but he promoted us on, like, he would roll with us, and like he knew how each individual student rolled, and he would gauge how they improved with like rolling with him. And that's how he promoted people, like a personal, like when you roll with someone, it's a very deep connection. It's something that, I don't know, it's a conversation you can have with someone that, and now I'm just kind of going off on a tangent there, but I guess mostly just adjusting and giving everybody their custom.
I think that's the best part that you said that, right? Like, because I think people want to know you, right? They want to know where you come from, where your mindset. Because so, not that you're going off on tangent. I don't want to stop you there. I want to just say that I think that's kind of the most valuable stuff that you're saying, is that's because I think we're all kind of echoing the same thing, but I want to know, or I think other people want to know, like, what makes you guys different, right? And that sounds beautiful to me. Like, would you agree, Gary? Like, that's when I hear that, I'm like, man, that's it. Like, because I think like just some person listening to this, right? And they're like, okay, I'm nearby, or somebody shares this with their friend, and they hear something that, man, you got to check these people out, man. Like, I really dig what they're saying, and it sounds cool. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's beautiful. Like, just what you're saying is that, because it's the way, if you look at jiu-jitsu like that, like a conversation, and that you're giving something back to each other and teaching some people some extra vocabulary and some extra things. And that's really what you care about, right? Like, you truly care. Like, and also I'm getting the vibe that you guys have got this, trying to make a family atmosphere. And I think that's important.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, it's a place where I was just talking about the other day, like most of us maybe have like a real job, and we spend every day being super proper, and we're just like being out there in the world, we have to act a certain way. And then like at the end of the day, you want to go train and hang out with your friends, and it's just like a chill place. And like you feel genuine connections, and like being a part of a family, not just like going somewhere and just being proper again, where we're standing up on the wall and just like bowing to each other. It's like, no, we're hanging out, we're listening to cool music, and we're just like talking to each other about life. And then maybe we choke each other and we learn a little bit about how to break each other's arms. But at the same time, it's like we're going to hang out with our friends and like, having deep connections in life, because that's what life is about. I mean, at least for us, it's like having connections and meeting people, and then also, providing a space where other people can come and have meaningful connections as well.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm just gonna say, like, my coach, when I opened a gym, and his greatest student, Nate Doggenbaugh, he's an amazing individual,
Yes.
mentored me, you know, but his advice to me was like, Michael, you know, just be yourself, you know, don't stop being yourself. And I love that, you know, like, and Tom DeBlas actually posted something about this recently, going back to him about like, you can teach a technique, you can go buy some curriculum and take the easy way out. We've all seen those gyms that do it, you know, they're just like, I'm going to teach this. It's just written down, you know, you don't even really need to think about it. You don't even damn near need to practice it, you know, and you don't need to be that good at it to just teach a technique and then not roll with your people. And so I'm like I practice what I preach. I push myself. I carry a lot of weight on my shoulders, you know, with doing that. And it mentally, it's like helps me, you know, jiu-jitsu, and we can all relate to that. I'm sure a lot of people can. And I've had a lot of my students express that, you know, like speaking of this 55-year-old gentleman, he came to me one day and he was like, I feel so alive after like his like 5th day of class, you know, like, and he was the nail all night, you know, and I was like, brother, that's my mission statement right there, you know, like you feel like a human being again, like you like stress is relieved, you know, like everyone's taking care of each other, just good vibes, you know, none of that.
We all care
toxic
about
shit,
each
you know?
other. If
Yeah.
everybody gets better, like you just like genuinely feel happy to see your peers get promoted or like them get better at a move, or like just like that feeling to genuinely feel happy to see someone else get better is
Brings everybody up.
yeah. And that also then it carries on into like everyday life to like see the people around you get better at life, you know, because there's enough success for everyone, and to be able to like, I don't know, it's a special feeling to see those around you become better and being lucky to have each other, and having like those relationships. And that's why, I don't know, our gym is becoming that way, and we didn't really even think about it.
I just have to
wasn't
work on being myself, and it's hard to do.
And it
You know?
makes it feel like
Not be a
themselves,
dick, you know?
right? Like
Yeah, well, and it happens. I think it happens accidental, right?
yeah, it definitely feels not planned, but it's what's kind of happening. And like you don't have to, your jiu-jitsu does not have to look like the videos or whatever we teach. Like everyone is an individual, and being able to see that, I think, is very important and something that we're learning to do.
Everyone's got their piece of the puzzle, straight up, like everybody.
Even if you're a white belt, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a great place to end this, is like, as far as like jiu-jitsu, it should be, what about like, what are we bringing to it? What are we bringing in? What are our expectations? I think you guys are excellent examples of the idea of it is for everybody if they want to do it.
Yeah.
Right. You have to
make
want
them do it. Yeah,
you can't make them do it. Yeah, but I'm here if you want to do it. And I think that's the thing that I've taken from you guys the most, is that like anybody who wants to do it, you're there for them. You're here. You are here for jiu-jitsu, and I appreciate that about you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Appreciate
so much.
you guys, you know?
Yeah, but your support, like both of y'all's support, has been I mean, you might not even realize it, but it's been a vital part of our I mean, I want to say success, but just how great our gym has already become in just 5 months. Like between the both of you, your support, and Bobcat letting us inherit your students, like it's
like family, straight up.
Like shot us forward, you know, several months of progress that it might have taken us a lot longer to do. So I we really appreciate that.
How's that Brett guy doing, that weirdo?
That's crazy,
He's doing great, actually.
Dude, he's my favorite.
So weird as hell.
Yeah, he's fun.
Doing great. He's a
you know, and Chase too, you know, I'm more excited about that. Chase got a match next weekend. Like, you know, obviously I want to win, but dude, I'm like more concentrated on him, you know. I want to see him do good, you know.
He's got a great
That
family
shit is
too.
that shit is the worst though, right? I would much rather be in a match than have to coach.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do both. I'm doing both. But I've done it, man. I've coached before and then literally heard my name being called and run over there and not been in the mindset. But screw it, man. You know, like I'm not
The
going to be the
only
new
good
Gordon
ones.
Ryan, you know, like I like to like push myself. I'm going to be the best that I can be. You know, I'm not trying to be the best in the world. And I guess that's what I want everyone else to be. Everyone that comes in there, that I want to give them the opportunity, you know.
See how badass
Yeah.
they can be, because everybody can be more badass than they think.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and they just need to be shown.
Yeah. You don't have to be the most badass, but you can be more badass than
you were
you know?
yesterday.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good statement from you guys too, right? Like you should put that up on a banner and put it in there. And I mean, for me, obviously, I know Gary knew you guys a lot better than myself, but it's a pleasure hearing all this stuff. I mean, it makes me happy. Like, just I know sometimes I was watching, you know, I have y'all on my screen so I can see, but when you're talking, I see Gary smiling because you guys are saying meaningful stuff, you know, that touches us too, because you know, we're there. I think we have all the similar mindset, right? And so it makes us happy to see other people that are, you know, just trying to spread jujitsu, right? And that's a beautiful thing. And it's a beautiful thing to have other like-minded people near us, right? I know Gary's North Carolina now, but still, like, we're still a family. So man, everything you said was
100%.
beautiful. And I guess this is usually what Gary says. I'm gonna steal his stuff. Like, tell us how we're gonna find you. Where all the places. I don't know why Gary always gets to say that, but this time I stole it since it's been a while. So I'll steal his stuff here. Where can people find out about you? Did I do okay, Gary?
You did amazing, and I love you, Butch. Well done.
We're
We're on Facebook and Instagram, Digg City Jiu Jitsu. You can find us on our website, digcityjujitsu.com. And yeah, if you hit us up on any of those portals of internet, we'll be able to answer back. And yeah, hopefully we can see some people out at the gym.
She's the tech advisor, so
yeah, Digg City's for the people. Everyone is welcome to come hang out and train with us.
awesome. Gary, go ahead and bring it home.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the fact that you've taken in my guys. And you given me a home still to come home to when I'm in Athens. And I appreciate that. I love you guys for that. And thank you so much. Butch, you know I love you. And
It's been a while. Let me say one thing before we go. Let me say this on a serious note. I should have said it earlier, but this is the first time we got together since a couple of things happened. But yeah, I had a good friend, Stefan Bonner, who just passed away. So
I'm sorry.
You know, it doesn't mean a whole bunch being on this, but I like to acknowledge that. And then obviously Anthony Johnson also, Rumble Johnson also passed away. It's been a really rough time, but I had both those guys are beautiful people and did some stuff at our gym, and we are friends beyond training because they were also of the same mindset as the people on this podcast. And those guys were, if you guys were able to meet them, they're beautiful people. So they will be missed. And again, I hate to, you know, I'm bringing it up now, you know, maybe should have brought it up at the beginning, but anyway, it's been a while since that happened, and it sucks. So life is short. I think every time that stuff happens, it makes me reach out to my friends more. So again, you know, same thing for all you guys. I'm thankful for this opportunity. And because of things and stuff like that, you know, obviously me and Gary sound pretty homosexual right now, but I love you guys. And Gary, I love you in the right way, but I do love you guys, and thank you for everything. And life is short, so take it what you can.
Yeah, thank you.
Seriously. Thank you very much.
All kinds of love, you guys. And can we point out the fact that we all have the same color walls?
We do. Holy shit.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys obviously.
I think we planned that.
I think you obviously have loads.
Yeah. It's a jiu-jitsu thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, I love you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Michelle, Michael, for being on the podcast.
Yeah,
And
thanks for
you
having
guys have
us.
a good one.
I'm very honored.
Yeah, it was a blessing.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
guys.
Take care.
Good night.